Congress people and others, they just keep saying the Constitution doesn't matter, that it has no binding power, that it's bad. I see judges saying it. I mean, they know what they're doing. They're really, I guess, trying to acclimate us to real tyranny, Dr. Roberts.
Certainly looks that way, Alex, and it's quite amazing. The Constitution doesn't seem to have any friends except perhaps the American Civil Liberties Union. The law schools are quiet. The bar associations are quiet. For the most part, the judiciary is quiet. So when people give up on democracy and they give up on the Constitution, then the only thing that's left is dictatorship. And generally they are tyrannical for anyone who gets in their way or is inclined to challenge them.
Dr. Roberts, what did you think of the reports in the last 2 weeks confirming that Homeland Security was not just only spying on members of the legislature of Pennsylvania, but also in Tennessee and in Florida, actually sending spies into Ron Paul Campaign for Liberty meetings and spying on the ACLU and listing them not just as extremists, but as possible terrorists?
Right. Well, if all these reports are correct, then quite clearly they're going to shut down any dissent and shut down any protections that people have in the Bill of Rights against the government. You know, Alex, look, what was probably the most awful thing that happened? When Obama was elected with very large majority and a lot of support, and the Democrats had the House and the Senate. And all of those Democrats have the responsibility to uphold the laws of the United States. They're all sworn to uphold the Constitution. And yet their leader in the House, Nancy Pelosi, said over and over and over that they're not going to look into the crimes of the Bush regime, despite the fact that the crimes were well known. They're unequivocal. We know for a fact that the Bush regime violated American statutory law by spying on Americans without obtaining warrants from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. We know for a fact that Bush, who admits it in his book, violated U.S. statutory law by torturing people, which is against American law. We know for a fact that the Bush regime committed treason. They led us into a war based on lies and deceptions. This is high treason. It's also a war crime. So we have these enormous crimes, and nothing was done. So what the Obama regime did was to accept the precedent established by the Bush-Cheney regime that the executive branch is not accountable to law. Now, if you compare this to just a few years ago when the House of Representatives impeached Bill Clinton because he had a sexual affair with a White House intern and lied about it. And you go back a few more years, and Nixon had to resign because he lied about when he first learned about the Watergate burglary. So you've seen a tremendous collapse in the authority of law in the United States, in the accountability of government. And as you say, that's the end of the Constitution. And we see also all sorts of clampdowns on dissent, so that now dissent is the equivalent of terrorism or aid to terrorists. It's extremism. They're investigating war protesters. They're spying on everybody. So it's a police state. I've said that several times over the past years, but we now see it demonstrated they feel the ability simply to show that that's what it is.
And Doctor, I want to elaborate on that, because just 2 months ago or so, I had you on the show, and I said they're now putting their hands down people's pants, and you said, Alex, and I don't blame you, because it's insane, send me a video of that. I'm not, and then, of course, then it blew up nationwide, and the videos are now out there, and this show was the epicenter of that. But I mean, just so you know, it's in the mainline papers in Tennessee and Florida. They got the documents. For those that don't know, it is confirmed that they didn't just list Ron Paul's groups as being a sign of extremism. They went and spied on them as potential terrorists. They've had the Army spy on Ron Paul and myself. I was sent that by moles inside the Army a year and a half ago. And so I understand even your apprehension, because I have it as well. I think when we come face to face with such bona fide, arrogant tyranny, that it's hard for us who are really in the middle of all this, researching it, to believe it. But and that takes me back to this, and this is my question. A bunch of people, I mean, it was more than 30. I've tried to count them all up, but private contractors, Army personnel from Afghanistan, from Iraq, they went to prison for torturing. But then we got the John Yoo White House memos and the Alberto Gonzales memos, and it was confirmed that Bush and Cheney had ordered it and said they could even torture kids in front of people. And the Washington Post lauded it in a 2002 article that's in my film, Road to Tyranny, and said, yeah, we do stuff to kids in front of their parents. So they're trying to sell us on the evil. Bush comes out and says, yeah, I ordered torture, I do it again. So how do the people that got caught go to prison, but then the people that give the order don't? I mean, I think that makes your point for you.
I suppose that the executive branch feels it can do whatever it wants. Look, Alex, I saw a report today, the latest poll of public support or lack thereof for the war in Afghanistan. Over 2/3 of the American people have turned against this war. And yet we had the Pentagon chief, Gates, the other day say that it doesn't matter what the American people think. We're committed to this war, and we don't care what the people think. And yet, while they say that out of one side of the mouth, out of the other side of the mouth, they talk about we have freedom and democracy. Well, you don't have democracy when the government is immune to public opinion. So, and you can find this immunity to public opinion everywhere. And you can find the public itself doesn't seem to appreciate free speech. For example, what is the main feature of American public discourse recently? You look at what comes out of the WikiLeaks saga. You have people demanding revenge against people who tell us the truth.
Well, they're calling for the death of Julian Assange.
Right. And so many ordinary Americans agree. So...
well, they're calling for my execution then. You know how many secret documents we've put out? I mean, that's the end of the free press. I even heard them calling for prosecution of the newspapers that publish this stuff. I mean...
yes, okay, Alex, I'm sure that you're right about that. And here's what I think the fear is. This coming year, starting tomorrow, as far as I can tell, there's no possibility of an economic recovery. It's probably going to be a resumption of the downturn. There doesn't seem to be anything in place to halt these gratuitous wars of conquest and occupation. And yet everyone is frustrated with them. I mean, probably the people would support them if we were winning, or if we could present it more convincingly that we're winning. And so Obama is probably toast. And so that leaves the Republicans. Now, even more than the Democrats, the Republicans have become a party of brown shirts. They don't believe in civil liberties. Civil liberties is something that coddles criminals and coddles terrorists and lets liberal judges let people off who should be punished and all of that. So the conservatives don't care about the Bill of Rights. It's something that's in the way of their agendas. They want to get people. They want to punish them. And so we'll end up with the Republicans in the White House and controlling the Congress. And, of course, what are their doctrines? Well, they believe in the primacy of the executive branch over the other branches. You know, this is their unitary executive theory. And they believe in the hegemonic right of Americans to rule the world. And so I think 2012 will mark the end of American democracy. We're probably in the last year of it right now. It'll continue to be eroded.
Stay there. Powerful intel from Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former head of the Treasury policy, father of Reaganomics. Unfortunately, I have to completely agree with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. This has been a long-term military-industrial complex takeover of the United States, and we've been used as the engine of the planet, the engine of tyranny worldwide. Doctor, finishing up the point that you were making about 2011 and the final preparations for the complete end of the Republic.
Well, I think we finished it, Alex. You can't, there's nothing on the scene that's coming to the defense of civil liberty and the Constitution or of accountable government. And there's no sign of any opposition to the snowballing police state. And we see repeatedly from agencies of the federal government a complete contempt for the public. For example, the TSA, the airport security people, they have made it completely clear that they will arrive at no accommodation with the American people other than the violation of their persons that they impose by brute force. We have the Secretary of Defense, which is a euphemism, saying that we're going to conduct wars and don't care what the people think because they don't have anything to do with our decisions. And we have all this massive spying, not just on state and local governments and anti-war protesters, but essentially on everybody. And the accumulation of massive numbers of dossiers on people. Well, there couldn't possibly be that many terrorists. If there were that many terrorists, the whole country would be going up in explosions right now. In fact, the only acts of terrorism that we ever see are the orchestrated cases that are part of FBI, what they call sting operations. They go out and find some hapless guy and provoke him into some plot that they give him and string this along, and then they capture him.
Well, the total confirmation of that is, Dr. Roberts, is the TSA has now announced 9,000 locations with telescreens giving you orders to spy on other shoppers and your family, TSA to be on the streets everywhere. I mean, this is a federal goon force that sticks its hands down your pants, which is prisoner submission training.
Mm-hmm. Well, when they got away with 9/11, that sealed our fate because that became the excuse. And I still don't see any real challenge other than from the truthers, which the government and the mainstream media, and as far as I can tell, the majority of the people keep marginalized despite their qualifications and the rigor of their research and reasoning. So I think when they got away with 9/11, that's when they captured everything because everything else flows from that. That's the excuse. That's where the war on terror came from. That's where all of the police state implications.
But I don't want to end this interview on a negative note here because Geraldo Rivera has come out and said he doesn't believe Building 7's story. Judge Andrew Napolitano says it's a complete fraud. It needs to be investigated. We've seen, just a lot of positive. Matt Drudge is now linking to articles that we write that talk about staged terror. I mean, things are really, I think people are waking up. It's always darkest before the dawn. I mean, even The Guardian says the TSA state-mandated molestation. I mean, I think they've gone too far. I think we've got a dog in the fight.
Well, it suits me. I don't want them to prevail, but the population itself is really not sufficiently clued in, and time is vanishing in which there'll still be the ability to act. And in fact, what you'll see happen, the population will end up electing the Republican goons who will complete the police state. That's my opinion. Now, I'm perfectly happy if I'm wrong. And I don't know what's going to happen to the judge and to Geraldo. And usually news people who dissent from the line find their career over. And look what happened to Helen Thomas so quickly. So I don't know what will happen to them now if they survive and they go on and they continue. But, you got to be skeptical of more.
Well, hold on, Doc. I know you're only scheduled for 30, and I got to get to calls, but let's come back and put bookends on this. Finish your statement. We'll do about 3 minutes with you on the other side going into the new year. Any other predictions? Then I'm going straight to your phone calls continually, right through with Max Kaiser and Bob Chapman. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts is coming up here in just about 3 minutes. I wanted Dr. Paul Craig Roberts to finish up the statement that he was making. But, I mean, Doc, in the final equation, we're here, we live here. It's a global tyranny. This tyranny's been exported everywhere. There's continuity of agenda. There's really nowhere to run. We learned that the DEA is really just a secret arm of the CIA. I mean, we already really knew that, but now that's mainstream news. I mean, they're openly trying to start censoring the internet. That's being announced. I mean, it's crazy times are here, but doesn't it take tyranny to finally get people out of their morass?
Well, not necessarily. The Germans had tyranny, and they mainly accepted it. It doesn't generally bother you unless you get in their way. Hitler didn't put the whole country in camps. So I think we'll have to see what happens to WikiLeaks and its founder. We'll have to see what they do to the internet. People who think have turned away from the print and TV media, and they do rely on the internet, so that's a danger. We'll see if WikiLeaks and its leader can escape the clutches of the Americans, and if the internet can continue to present uncensored information, then we can continue our opposition. Otherwise, things just get closed down, and they've been very successful, as you emphasize every day, in closing things down.
Well, we're in for the fight of our lives, but I'm seeing a lot of positive people, and Ron Paul and Lou Rockwell and so many others that I respect with their historical understanding and their finger on the pulse. They certainly concur that we're going into a real, hardcore, very vicious, premeditated tyranny, but that there's also a big awakening happening. And, we've had a lot of tyranny and sedition acts before, but those have been reversed. I think stage terror is the ace in the hole, and we've confirmed that USA Today has Cal Thomas predicting massive car bombings, machine gun attacks all over the country, and we know that's not going to come from a real, organized Muslim threat.
Right.
And so they're gearing up for a major Pentagon Operation Northwood style event. But I think 9/11 Truth has really introduced the idea of false flag terror to the point that this isn't going to go the way they think it is.
Suits me. I hope they fail.
Well, what are you doing for the new year?
I'm just going to try to take it easy.
All right, Dr. Roberts. It's always great having you pop in. That's scary, though, that you think that the economy is going to continue to degenerate in 2011?
Yes, I think the downturn will renew because there's nothing to drive the recovery. And, of course, the deficits will get larger, and The Federal Reserve will monetize yet more of them. And at some point, there'll be some sort of problem with inflation and high unemployment at the same time.
Aren't we already starting to see that with oil going up and gold and silver and food on average? Corn's up almost 50%?
You may be.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much for spending time with us. Briefly, tell folks about your newest book.
Well, it's How the Economy Was Lost, and it tells them exactly how the economy was lost. It's easy to read, short chapters.
Well, you're an extremist. How dare you, father of Reaganomics, speak out against all the insanity that's happening? You're probably almost as bad as Ron Paul or the ACLU. Maybe we need to have some spies come look at you, huh?
They probably are, Alex. But, you know, I don't have as large of an audience as you, so they'll get you first.
Yeah, I'm the canary in the coal mine. All right, God bless you. Have a great New Year. We're going to win this thing.
Okay. Amen.
Take care, my friend. Have a good New Year.